Wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Leigh Bracknell. Oh, by the way, Leigh, I see from your book that on Thursday night, Lord Shoreham and Mr. Worthing were dining with me. 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it in the bachelor's establishment the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens. Is marriage as demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself. I've only been married once. That was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Leigh.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Leigh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Leigh's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of their moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Now, where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours. Neighbours.
Nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Oh, Shropshire. Yes, of course. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who's coming to tea?
Merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
Oh, perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as when Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
Like you've come up for pleasure, I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal, quite one to be accepted. What usually is, I believe, then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll certainly try to forget that.
I have no doubt about that, dear Alfie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
There is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She's my aunt. How's the bread and butter? The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Very good bread and butter it is.
My dear fellow, you need not eat it as if you were going to eat it all. You behave as if you're married to her already. You are not married to her already. And I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say
Well,
that?
in the first place, girls never marry men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
It's nonsense.
I mean, this is the great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question
had my cigarette case all this time. I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no good in offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
That is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription, I find the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It is absurd to have hard-and-fast rules about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of the fact that I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone in the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone about it.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes. A charming old lady she is, too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Now, just give it back to me, Algernon.
Why does she call herself Little Cecily? If she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells, from Little Cecily with the fondest love.
And what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall and some aunts are not. It doesn't matter, surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You simply think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That's absurd. And for heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with the fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. Now, there is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, to call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
But you've always told me it was Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone's Ernest. You answered to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most Ernest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd. You're saying your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here is one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany. I'll keep this as a proof your name is Ernest. If ever you attempt to deny it to me, it's Gwendolyn to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. The cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come on, boy. You'd much better have a thing out at once.
My dear Algernon, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to talk like a dentist, but what isn't a dentist? It uses a false impression.
Well, that's exactly what dentists always do. Now go on! You tell me the whole thing! I may mention, I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist. And I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll give you the meaning of that impossible expression. As soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you were Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray, make it improbable.
There's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect, which you could not possibly appreciate, lives in my place in the country, under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is this place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
Oh, I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have Bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Actually, I don't know if you'll be able to understand my real motive. You're hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's That, my dear Alfie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. And modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature, a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't. Don't try it. No, you should leave that to the people who haven't been at university. They're doing so well in the daily papers. No, what you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You were one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down to the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight. For I've been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know, you were absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You'd much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week. Quite enough to dine with one's own relatives. In the second place, I am always treated as a member of the family, and sent into dinner without I know one at all, or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well. She'll place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist. I actually want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you.
No, I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too much interested in him. She's always asking me to forgive him. And that sort of thing is rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Ernest. And I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
Oh, that's nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home has proved in half the time. That is the worst of the English. They're always degrading truths into facts. And when truths become facts, they lose all their intellectual value.
Do you always really understand what you say?
Yes. If I listen very carefully.
You have far more brains than I've ever given you credit for.
Oh, my dear fellow, until you believe I have got absolute genius, there will always be a slight coldness between us. There must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian now. If I get
looks quite 20 years younger. Now I'll have a cup of tea. One of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Would you come and sit here, Gwendolyn?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens. Leigh! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, Leigh. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets at Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour. From what cause, I, of course, cannot say. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down to dinner with Mary Farquhar. She's such a nice woman, and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is accustomed to that.
He's a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me, but the fact is, I've just had a telegram say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice, as far as any improvement in his ailments goes. I should be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury for me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday. I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season, when everyone has practically said whatever they had to say. In those cases was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. And I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. If one plays good music, people don't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I will know the program I've drawn up if you'll kindly come to the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think that they are improper, and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed I believe is so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Reverend. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. That makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary
I
absence.
would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of the fact. And I often wish that in you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of Ivey, the bank is constantly making more sensitive monthly magazines, and has written the individual book I don't. And my idea has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute trust. The most absolute respect he had a friend called Earnest. I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn.
Passionately.
Oh, darling! Oh, you don't know how happy you make me.
My own Ernest.
Well, you don't suppose me to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Supposing it was something else, do you really mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know it.
Well, personally, darling, and to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Ernest. I don't think that name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibration.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say, I think there's lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack! No! There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all, indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I've known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually pleasant. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Webb.
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Webb, I think it only better to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mr. Webb. What have you got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn. Will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it. I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture.
Papa! I must break all the time. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished? What?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of that. Engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise. to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn! The carriage!
Yes, Mamma.
Will you take a seat, Mr. Worthing?
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I'm quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a rarely affectionate mother requires. You smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. Far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I have always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. Modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. It will prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about that.
Well, I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. Of course, I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who can make anything out of
Your
it.
country house, how many bedrooms?
Uh,
Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
Unfashionable, sir. I thought there was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the size?
Both, if necessary. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as tourists. They dine with us. Or come in the evening, at any rate. Now, to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
Well, I'm afraid I don't actually know who I am. By birth, I was found. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me, and he gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did the charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag. Yes. I was in a handbag, a somewhat large, black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
The Brighton line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Merriman, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. Having born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag. Whether it had handles or not. Seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life that reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to.
Well, may I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible. Make a definite effort to produce at least one pair of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. My dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom. Form an alliance with a parcel. Good day, Mr. Worthing.
What a ghastly tune, Algernon. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off all right, boy? You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you. If she did, you just have to propose again. That is all. If she refuses you a second time, she's sure to marry
Well,
you.
Gwendolyn is as right as it should be. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. I never met such a gorgon. Don't really know what gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, I shouldn't talk about your aunt that
My
way.
dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It's the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge of how to live, or the smallest instinct about when to die. It isn't.
I don't argue about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that's exactly what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, that's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased and quite as true as anything in modern life should
I'm
be.
sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. You anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools, or about the clever people, of course.
Oh,
Have you told Gwendolyn the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack who comes?
my dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she's pretty, and to someone else if she's plain. What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd be much better, say, a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well, then. My poor brother Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. They get rid of him.
But I thought you said that this party was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
It's all right. Cecily's not a silly, romantic girl. I'm glad to say she's got a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she's only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. If you want to get a good table at Willis's, we really must go and dress. Do you know it's nearly 7?
No, it's always nearly 7.
I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What should we do after dinner? Go to a theatre?
No, I loathe listening.
Well. Let us go to a club?
No, I hate talking.
We might trot around the Empire in
I
town.
can't bear looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing!
It's awfully hard work doing nothing. Although, I don't mind hard work when there is no definite object of any kind. Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Miss Fairfax.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Wade.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt strictly a moral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that. Pray oblige me by turning your back.
My own darling!
We may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I feel we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she could possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
The Manor House,
Woolton.
Hertfordshire. There is a good postal service, I suppose.
Oh.
It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one!
How long to remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
Thanks. I've heard round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see the jail carriage, my own darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Leigh.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Leigh, I'm going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put on my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Leigh.
It never is, sir.
Leigh, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a ripping girl. Sensible, intellectual. The only girl I ever cared for in my you don't take care, your friend Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape one day.
I love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
That is nonsense, Algernon. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does. Besides, I love nonsense. The manor house. Bolton. Up in there!
And the man's soul, so let him reap. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about.
Yes, but it sometimes chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory
enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I should hang upon her lips. Metaphorically, my metaphor was drawn from Eve. Mr. Worthy, I suppose, had not returned from town.
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil.
Egeria, my name is Letitia Doctor.
A classical allusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I will see you both about the evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side. Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven up from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany, London. Uncle Jack's brother? Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you, privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you were going to talk to the housekeeper about a role for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You don't understand a strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
No, I'm not really wicked at all. Cecily, you mustn't think that I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I've been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that. I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
Oh, it's much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you were here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up with the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment. I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you had better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About what?
About your emigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
Certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? It's soon done.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts I've received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
The marriage shall be end.
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
And Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I think I can't catch a sensible man. I should know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. A misanthrope, I can understand. A woman-thrope, never.
Oh, believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
That is obviously why the primitive church is not lost into the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear Doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leaves weaker vessels astray.
So they are not equally attractive when married.
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are free! I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. Oh, where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthy!
Mr. Worthy.
This is indeed a surprise.
We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthy, I trust this garbled world does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead. Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
You have at least the consolation of knowing that you're always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
But poor Ernest, he had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him in the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Well, charity, dear Miss Prism, charity, none of us is perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts.
No, he seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind. Perhaps we should make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the banner in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion. Or as in the present case, distressing. I preached in harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, days of humiliation, and festival days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral as a charity sermon on the behalf of society for the prevention of discontentment among the upper classes. Fisher was present. I was struck by some of the analogies I drew.
Oh, that reminds me. You mentioned christening, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen all right. I mean, of course, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant
sleep unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yeah.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
It's not for a child, dear Doctor, no. I'm very fond of children. But the fact is, I would like to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
Surely, Mr. Welling, you've been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
Have you any great doubts on the subject?
I have the very gravest doubts. Of course, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Oh, not at all. Sprinkling, and indeed the immersion of adults, is a perfectly canonical practice.
The immersion?
Well, you need have no apprehension. Sprinkling is all that is necessary. Or indeed, I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. And 1 hour, would you wish the ceremony performed?
I might trot around about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred recently in one of the outlying cottages on your own estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
Oh, I don't see much fun in being christened along with other babies. You would be childish. Would half past 5 do?
Admirably. And now, Mr. Welling, I will not intrude any longer into a house of sorrow. I really beg you not to be too much bound down by grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
It seemed to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I am pleased to see you back. What horrid clothes you have on. Do you go to chase?
Cecily!
My child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? You look happy. You look as if you had toothache, and I have such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother! Your brother Ernest? He arrived about half an hour ago.
Nonsense, I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
Perfectly absurd. Oh, good heavens!
I come down to town to tell you that I'm very sorry for all the trouble I've given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. Surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury? Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the odds were all on my side. But I must say, I think Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I've come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we might leave the 2 brothers together.
Certainly. Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism, my little task of reconciliation is over.
Done a beautiful action today, dear child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
You scoundrel! You must get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any Bunbury here.
I put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that's all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I
luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack! Have you been called back to town at all?
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman is never interfere with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
Oh, I can quite understand that.
Cecily is a dog.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. you look quite ridiculous in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be indeed mourning for a man who's actually staying for a whole week with you as a guest in your house. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05
I
train.
certainly won't leave you as long as you were in mourning. It would be most unfriendly. If I was in mourning, you would stay with me, I suppose. I should think it very unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress, and with such little result.
Well, at any rate, that is better than being always overdressed, as you are.
If I'm occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by always being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have got to catch the 4:05, and I hope you will have a pleasant journey back to town. This bumpery, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. There she is.
I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's coming to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful party.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Annie. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I give anything to look at it. May I?
No. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of their own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. It appears in volume form. I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. Oh, no, cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily, ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily,
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew that you were staying on till next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. I've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yeah, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels
Why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I did nothing at all. Cecily, I am very much hurt indeed to hear you broke off our engagement, particularly when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear, romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, darling. With a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
We'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could now that I have actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Earnest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Earnest.
But my own dear child, do you mean to say you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
What name?
Any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Oh, dear, sweet, loving little darling, I really don't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It is not a bad name. In fact, it is rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps who get into the bankruptcy courts are called Algernon. So, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in the practice of all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes. Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once, a most important christening. I mean, a most important business. I shan't be away for more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since April the 14th, and having only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is! I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal in my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss?
I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew. Cecily Cardew? What a very sweet name. Something tells me that we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong. How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down. I may call you Cecily, may I not? With pleasure. And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you? If you wish. Then that is all quite settled, is it not? I hope so. Perhaps this might be a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose? I don't think so. Outside the family circle. Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man. Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses? Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I am very fond of being looked at. You are here on a short visit, I suppose? Oh, no, I live here. Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years, resides here also. Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. Indeed? My dear guardian, with 'Tis strange. He never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am about to state that now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Pray do. I think that whenever one has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours between us. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I am going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Quite darling, Cecily. I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I am afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglements my dear boy may have got into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes. As usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
What a well-kept garden, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot Detestable girl. But I require tea. Sugar? No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore. Cake or bread and butter? Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays. Hand that to Miss Fairfax. Thank you, Merriman. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar. And though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far. To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go. From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I know that you are false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right. It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I have been trespassing in your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood. Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn, darling!
What goes it? May I ask if you are engaged to be married to that young lady?
To dear little Cecily, of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little ear?
Thank you. You may. I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing. I beg your pardon. This is Uncle Jack. Jack! Oh! Here is Ernest.
My own love!
One moment, Ernest. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to that young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes! To good heavens, Gwendolyn! I mean to Miss Fairfax.
Stop! What could put such an idea into your busy little head?
Thank you. You may. I met you with some slight error, Mr. Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff. Algernon Moncrieff? Oh! Are you called Algernon?
What? I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked, but my name certainly is John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us. My poor, wounded Cecily. My sweet, wronged Gwendolyn. You will call me sister, will you not? There is just one question that I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian. An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother, Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother, Ernest. So it's a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother, Ernest, is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my life I have ever been reduced to such a painful position. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother in my life, and I have certainly not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
And you've never had a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I am afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone. It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it? Let us go to the house. They will hardly venture to come after us then. No, men are so cowardly, aren't they? Ooh.
This present state of things is what you call bumbery.
Bunbury's next act.
Serious Bunbury's? Good heavens!
One must be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. But what on earth you are serious about? I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country quite so often as you used to do, dear Algie, and a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off-colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
As far as your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say, you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable. To say nothing of the fact that she is my
I
ward.
can see no possible defence at all for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax. To say nothing of the fact she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
Oh, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
Oh, there's certainly no chance of your marrying Miss
So I
Cardew.
don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that.
How you can sit there, calmly eating muffins when we're in this horrible trouble? I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuffs, but one must always eat muffins quite calmly. It's the only way to eat
I
them.
say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
There's no reason why you should eat all in that greedy way.
I wish you would have tea cake instead. I don't like tea cake.
I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
The son is perfectly heartless eating
I
muffins.
said it was perfectly heartless at you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having dinner. It's absurd. I don't go without having my dinner. No one ever does, except vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Ernest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I made arrangements this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30, and I naturally will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest. It would be absurd. Besides, there's no evidence at all that I've ever been christened by anybody. It's entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
Yes! You have been christened. That is the important thing.
Oh, quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you have never been christened, I must say, I think it rather dangerous your venturing on the hand. If I make you quite unwell, you can hardly have forgotten. Someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off in Paris this week by a severe chill.
Yes, you said yourself the severe chill was not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in
That is
medicine.
nonsense. Algernon, you're always talking nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Yes, but I hate tea cake.
Why not do you allow tea cake to be served up for your guests? When I did as you have, I'll pass your towel.
Algernon! I've already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you
I
go?
haven't quite finished my tea yet. There's still one muffin left.
I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply. Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrieff kindly answer the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation. Yes, dear. If you can believe him. I do. And that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer. True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the right thing. Mr. Merriman, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the greatest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Wells. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it. I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity that you think we should forgive them. Yes! I mean, no! True. I have forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one. Could we not both speak at the same time? An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time for me? Certainly. Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes. When questions of self-sacrifice are concerned, they are infinitely beyond us.
We are!
They have moments of physical courage, of which we women know absolutely nothing. Darling!
Darling!
Lady Bracknell!
What does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing.
Come here, sit down. Sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind in the young is a sign of mental decay. I serve my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin. I followed her at once by a baggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am glad to say, under the impression that she is attending a more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never undeceived him on any question. You would consider it wrong. But of course, you will clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment. On that point, as indeed on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now as regards Algernon. Algernon?
Yes, Augustus.
May I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
No, Bunbury doesn't live here. Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, Bunbury died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Bunbury? Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware that Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he is well punished for his morbidity.
I mean, it was found out. I mean, doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That is what I mean. So Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his Acted under proper medical advice. Finally got rid of this Mr. Bunbury. May I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is that young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me a curiously unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to be married to Cecily, not Augusta.
Beg your pardon.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiar in the air. This particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seems to me considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, London, Jervis Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, Scotland.
That sounds not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence. Even in tradesmen. What proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They're open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I have known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby. A firm of the very highest position in their profession. Indeed, I'm told that one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
Extremely kind of you, Lady Bracknell. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English variety.
Ah, a life crowded with incident. Perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I'm not myself in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time approaches for our departure. We have to look over to lose. As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I suppose I'd better ask you if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That's all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you, my friend.
Mr. Worthing. £130,000. And in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities, any of the qualities that last and improve with time. We live, I regret to say, in an age of surfaces. Come over here, dear. Pretty child. Your dress is sadly simple. Your hair seems almost as nature might have left it. Soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a really marvelous result in a very brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lancing, and after 3 months, her own husband did not know.
After 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn round, sweet child. The side view is what I want. Yes. Quite as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. The chin a little higher here. Style largely depends on the way that chin is worn. They're worn very high just at present. Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
there are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't care tuppence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind. But I never dreamed for a moment of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may also address me as Aunt Augusta for the future.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
To speak frankly, I'm not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character before. Which I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, but she can't marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
What grounds, ma'am? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say, an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more can one desire?
It pains me very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is that I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon, impossible. He went to Oxford.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by my butler, an entire bottle of my Perrier Jouet Brut 89, a wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I don't intend to have a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to entirely overlook my nephew's conduct.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come over here, sweet child. How old are you, dear?
Well, I am really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
You are perfectly right in making some slight alteration. Indeed, no woman should ever be quite accurate about her age. It looks so calculated. 18, but admitting to 20 at evening parties. Well, it will not be very long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I don't think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
Pray excuse me, Lady Bracknell, for interrupting you again, but it is only fair to tell you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not come legally of age till she is 35.
That does not seem to me to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have, of their own free choice, remained 35. Lady Dumbledon is an instance in what, to my knowledge, she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40. It was many years ago now. I see no reason why our dear Cecily should not be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algy, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I wedding. Even to be married is quite out of the question.
Then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
My dear Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark which I'm bound to say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature. I beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage to Gwendolyn, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come, dear, you've already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir, is not that somewhat premature?
Expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that that was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
I understand then there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon.
I don't think that as things are now, it would be of much practical value to either of us, Dr. Chasuble.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. They savour the heretical views of the Anabaptists. Views I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your present mood seems peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I've just been informed by the Q.O. that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism's been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join you.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. This matter may prove to be one of vital importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect? Remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies and the very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she occupies in your household?
I am a servant now.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I heard of her, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches, she is
I
nigh.
was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I have been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism! Prism, where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104 Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel. Usually revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded on my memory, I prepared, as usual, to take the baby
supposed to occur? You hardly consider the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Guardian has a very emotional nature.
It sounds as if he was having an argument. I dislike arguments of any kind. They are always blunder and often convincing.
Stop now.
I wish you would arrive at some conclusion.
This suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends upon your answer.
Seems to be mine. Yes. Here is the injury is received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here is the stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred at Leamington. And here on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it. Yes! Mother! Unmarried? That is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one that has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. Maternity has never been an incident in my life. There! You can tell who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive. But would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother. Then I have a brother after all! I knew I had a brother! I always said I had a brother, Cecily, Gwendolyn. How can you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Algy, you young scoundrel, you'll have to treat me with more respect in the future. You've never behaved to me like a brother in all your life.
Not today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, however, though I was out of practice.
But what is your Christian name? Now that you'll become someone else.
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change, except in my affections.
Let me clear up at once, only just a moment. At the time Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened...
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father, General Moncrieff.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot, at the present moment, recall.
This is a terrible crisis. Everything hangs on the nature of your reply.
Your poor dear mother always addressed him as General. Indeed, I don't think she would have dared to do otherwise.
Do you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
I've no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, I bet, but only in later years, and that was the result of the Indian fight, and marriage, and indigestion, and other things.
His name would appear in the army lists of the period, I suppose, on Augusta.
The general was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life. But I'm quite sure his name would appear in any military directory.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here. Lord Moncrieff, Lieutenant, 1840. Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General, 1869. Christian names. Ernest John.
Gwendolyn, my name was Ernest. But it is Ernest after all. I mean, it naturally is Ernest.
Yes, I remember that the general was called Earnest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name.
My own Ernest. I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
My own darling. It is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change. Ernest!
Cecily!
Algernon!
Letitia!
I hear you. You seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.